Dear Brother James, I hope this letter finds you well and that working at the docks is not too backbreaking. It's good to receive news from you and from home. Keeps my mind off of the war. We wallow in the trenches, in the mud among the rats and the dead bodies, afraid that if we stand tall, we might catch a bullet. But if you take anything from my letter, I want it to be this. Do whatever you can to stay away from this madness. You followed me everywhere when we were kids. But please, don't follow me here, James. There is nothing here but misery and death. Be safe and stay home. Freddy.
Station! Ready! Emperor, now!
Entry of the United States into the First World War. The United States entered World War I in April 1917, more than 2.5 years after the war began in Europe. President Woodrow Wilson tried to remain out of the war for as long as possible, and public opinion remained largely against U.S. intervention until the beginning of 1917. Unrestricted submarine warfare, as well as the Zimmerman telegram, pushed the American government into joining the war. Selective Service Act and the Draft. The Selective Service Act, enacted May 8, 1917, started the beginning of the draft of U.S. soldiers to fight in Europe. For the first time, the draft targeted all men between the ages of 21 and 30, including African American men. They were required to register for possible selection to serve. By the end of World War I, 2 million men volunteered and 2.8 million men were drafted. 2 million of them were sent to fight. For the United Kingdom, voluntary service turned into conscription at the beginning of 1916. UK Dominion countries sent volunteers beginning 1914, but national conscription didn't happen in Australia and only started in Canada in January 1918. Segregation. Although 1865 saw the end of slavery in the United States, African Americans were still subject to discrimination. Segregation was legally enforced through a series of laws voted at the state or local levels known as black codes. Although they were allowed to marry and sometimes purchase property, interracial marriage was largely illegal and other laws infringed on the rights of African Americans to act as a witness, vote, or bear arms. During this era of white supremacy, violence, lynchings and beatings, was perpetrated against African Americans, particularly in the South. Military training camps were completely segregated, ensuring that white and black soldiers would train and live in separate facilities. The early days of the 15th. The 15th New York National Guard Regiment was an infantry regiment from New York State. The regiment consisted mainly of African American soldiers, but also included men from other countries, such as Puerto Rico, Cuba, and Guyana. They were led mostly by white commissioned officers, but also included a few African American commissioned officers. After completing their training in New York with limited equipment, the 15th was integrated into the U.S. Army and finally got proper equipment, 1 gun per soldier. They then travelled south to Wadsworth Camp, but couldn't complete their training due to high racial tension with the local population. They were sent to war shortly thereafter.
Attention! Ready! Emperor, now! Attention!
No.
Draft card. This registration card for the draft was filled in by a U.S. Army recruitment agent. During the Great War, the U.S. Army was segregated, while the U.S. Navy did not recruit African Americans at all. Draft cards had their left corner removed to indicate that the recruit was African American.
Up, up, up! Up, up, up!
Rattlesnake Patch. On the 8th of April 1917, the 15th National Guard chose the rattlesnake as their insignia. Their motto was, "Don't tread on me, goddamn, let's go." Broomstick. When the 15th New York National Guard Regiment began basic training and their recruitment campaign in New York, there were only 250 rifles for 2,500 men. The recruits thus performed their drills with broomsticks and would even march through the streets of New York with them. Once this regiment was officially incorporated into the U.S. Army, they have finally obtained the same equipment as the other soldiers and were able to train properly.
Dear Freddy, it's good to hear from you. Sorry to disappoint, but it looks like I'm following you around again. I've already enlisted with the 15th New York National Guard Regiment, or the old 15th, as they call us. We're done with our training and on our way to the front. We'll sail from New York to France. We're on our way to help you win the war. But don't you worry about me. I can take care of myself just fine. Your little brother, James.